is a partner event. This is for us, okay, by us. So say something in chat. Feel free to talk to the other attendees. In fact, in a second, I'm going to share a spreadsheet with you where you can put your information and possibly get in touch with a lot of other tech partners and agencies that are going to be attending this and also will watch this in perpetuity. We will put this up on our YouTube later on, and all the sessions will be available on demand. We're really looking forward to today. And hey, Raul, and I see a lot of familiar faces. I feel like I already know so many people here. This is such a different event for me because you've probably maybe hung out with me on the merchant side where we've been doing these mass market merchant events. And here today, it's really maybe to take a step back from all of that and together combine our thoughts and say, okay, how are our virtual events going? What can we do to better sell to merchants? How are merchants responding in the market today? What do they want to see from our products? And by the end of today, we'll also be talking very deeply about the changing tech landscape and what that means for you as a tech partner or even as an agency and all the changes that are occurring so rapidly. In a minute, I'm going to get started with an interview with the CEO of Gorgeous, Romain Lapeyre. But before we do that, I would like to give a special thanks to our main sponsor of the event, Everflow. And I think throughout the course of today, if you don't have a partner management platform, and even if you do have one, you might want to check out Everflow. It is a great partner management platform, and you're going to hear a few sessions, including one for me, on exactly how to work with partners. So we're really going to help build out your partnership strategy as part of the event today. In fact, to give you a little bit more about the event, starting with our interview with Romain, that's more about his journey as a founder and how he comes to build product and think about growth and the way that I know he's so good at structuring data and how he uses technology. So I'm really looking forward to that. We will dive into partner and partner marketing quite a bit. We will also dive into data analytics and using data for marketing purposes. And then we will, and there'll be a few sessions around that. We'll also have a couple of sessions on App Store optimization if you're in the Shopify App Store, which I know a lot of people here today are. Then we'll close out with me and Finn are going to talk about the future of e-commerce technology and what we're seeing in the market. And it kind of will tie to our panel in just about 30 minutes or so. That we'll bring in Mike from SMS Bump and John from previously from StoreTasker to talk about how they got acquired. And we're going to talk a bit about what we're seeing from acquisitions in the market and what that means if you're thinking about starting a new technology product, if you are growing your product and everything in between from there. So I'm really looking forward to all of these sessions. Really quick, so I mentioned Everflow, and I'll share some more information on them in just a second. I'd also like to thank our partners. We have Store Leads. Give me a second here to sip some coffee. Just clear my throat a little. Sorry about that. Store Leads is the built with for e-commerce. So if you're selling to merchants, you don't really care about built with anymore because that's yesterday's data tool. You want to use Store Leads. It's a lot better. It's a lot stronger. And it's even a lot cheaper than built with. So I do recommend checking them out. App Store Analytics is a new tool that is just now launching for Shopify apps that are on the App Store. It actually is I think one of the first tools to help you rank better in the Shopify App Store. And I believe they'll even help manage some advertising components on that front as well. Partner League, if you're not in this group, you should definitely join Partner League. It's a Slack group where we all hang out and talk. We share leads with each other. We discuss common problems. Sometimes it's a lot of developer-related problems, like I have no idea why this API call isn't working, or things that I don't even understand. Other times it's like marketing problems or sharing events with each other and sparking new partnerships or driving leads to each other. It's just a great way to engage with, I think it's like 150, 200 of the top Shopify partners in the ecosystem. And of course, we have a kind of really excited to be partnering with e-commerce day. They're like, we do these smaller virtual events geared towards really having a good connection with the technology component and the brands, and then bringing in some brands. They focus on like the bigger picture stuff with bringing in Facebook and Google and like the grand scheme of things. So we're a little bit more tactical and they're a little bit more aspirational. And so e-commerce day, great place to sponsor, to look at getting a speaking spot there. And you should also consider sponsoring the Shopee Awards, which Phil just told me they are postponing for later, but you could still get in there for some additional exposure towards merchants and towards the partner ecosystem as well. Other than that, I'd like to maybe tell you about my philosophy on kind of why I wanted to create this event. These are the three pillars of what I consider e-commerce today. We have product, obviously very important, and what really drives maybe a bit of the value given to a customer in e-commerce. Then you have the market and the brand and how it relates and how we keep in touch with them. And what merchants are forgetting today is largely about the technology and how that integrates directly into product market fit. We no longer just have product market fit, we have product market technology fit, because when the technology is working really well for you, you will see, stronger branding, you will see stronger value on the product side. And so for that reason, I thought together we could come together and really hone in on how we relay these values to merchants and bring our voices together, perhaps in a way to strengthen those relationships and make it clear to them that it's not just about buying my tech tool and paying me a monthly recurring subscription fee. It's about fitting technology into your business and thinking about it in a deeper way. And that brings me to kind of why we do this. If you don't know who I am, I'm Derek Haney, the Chief E-commerce Technologist at EcommerceTechio. We've been doing this for about a year and a half, doing a lot of virtual and live events. We also have been working really hard on reviewing tech products and doing demos with a lot of people here today to understand the technology landscape as best as possible. In fact, let me give you a sneak peek into what we're building. We're taking from Scott Brinker's Playbook and building out a little bit of a landscape of technology. This is obviously just the beginning. I literally had my team just throw a little bit of this together, but we've got a lot more to add to this list. We've got hundreds of partners that just haven't been listed yet, and we're going to be working on this on an ongoing basis. So we focus on talking to merchants, and I'll get into that more later during my session. What else? We do have some other events coming up: Future of E-commerce Global, our social media, social commerce event, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and a few partner events, including, I see Valentine is here, the OmniConvert E-commerce Growth Summit coming up, and Mini Chats, Conversations Commerce, and E-commerce Day. I just want to let you guys know about those. This is just some of the partners that we've been able to work with over in just 1 year of business. And if you want to talk partnerships or sponsorships with me, you can reach out. I'm Derek at EcommerceTech.io, or you can book a call here. I'll share all that with you in chat in just a second. That's not why we're here, though. So we're already, I'd say we're on time. This will be perfect. I'm going to promote Roman, and we are going to have a good conversation, I think, on his business and what he's been able to do over the last few years. Roman, can you hear me?
Yeah, just fine.
Hey.
Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Looking good. How's it going? How is business? How is life?
How's life? I just had a daughter 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
So that's quite a change. So getting used to it. And yeah, I'm actually calling you from France. I'm just there for the summer, so life is pretty good. How are you doing yourself?
That's amazing. Doing great. I've been able to stay sane in quarantine, and my 6-year-old is I can't believe he's already 6. He's going into first grade next week, and we're trying to figure out how to parent and work at the same time. It's quite something, but we'll be able to tackle it, and it'll be good. And I'm sure parenting for you is very interesting right now as well.
Yeah, of course. I see I have some support from Valentine on the chat, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, it can be quite tough, but it's hopefully you have some help around that. Like, you can take turns at home. You're running a high growth company at the same time, and maybe for those people that don't know, you can give a little bit of background on what Gorgias is and who you are and how you got started in building an e-commerce help desk.
Yeah, of course. So started about 5 years ago out of college. I basically like worked in a bunch of tech startups before as an intern, and so I just fell in love with the impact that technology can have on everyday life at work. And so that's kind of how I got into Gorgias. And so what we do is that we empower merchants to provide a great customer service at scale, specifically on Shopify. And so we have about like 4,000 merchants today, and we had 0 3 years ago. So yeah, to everyone who's building on Shopify, like yeah, like this is quite an interesting journey, and there's tons of growth and interest right now. So really excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, you glossed over a few things there. First, you graduated from a prestigious business school, right? What I forget the exact name.
Yeah, it's called HEC. It's a French one, but I think like I got the most learnings from these last 5 years building a company and like working with
I feel like
users.
you had some foundational components put in there because for those that know, I worked very closely with you, and I was always very impressed by structurally you were able to build a business. It wasn't what I see in a lot of other business, which is just like putting out fires constantly. It was more like, nope, we're going to build this stage, we're going to build this stage, we're going to build this stage, and so it was very strategic. So and I've always been thrilled that I could see that from both the inside and the outside. So from within business school, you're interning at some tech companies, and you find a co-founder and you say, let's build a Chrome extension to do XYZ. And I mean, are you thinking this is going to be a small project, a big project?
I think we had no idea at the time. So I think we're like, I was 24 and Alex, my co-founder, was a little older than that, like probably 27, 28. So we didn't really know, like we just wanted to start somewhere. If we had to start again today, like we would do things very differently, I assume, because like lots of things that we learned were along the way. But yeah, we launched this Chrome extension, which was a tool to turn templates into emails. And doing this, like we had a bikes in New York, and we were just visiting like a bunch of users to figure out like what they were doing, and lots of them were Shopify stores. So that's how we got into this e-commerce world.
So you listen to your customers. That's where I think, sometimes people forget to do this. It's a basic thing, but you actually biked to the customers, like building or work or home or something, and you said, show me how you use the product.
Yeah, exactly. So we would literally like sit down next to them, which was a little bit awkward because when you shadow somebody, like it's not something that they are used to. So at first we had to convince them it was okay, and a few of them thought it wasn't awkward, too much awkward, so they said yes. And it was really good actually because we just like sat next to them and looked at them working, and that's where we saw that so they would like spend some time in Shopify, then spend some time in their Zendesk, typically to respond to support tickets. And then like on ShipStation and so forth, we were like, hey, like that's a lot of steps and it's not very efficient. Customers keep waiting. So we decided to build an all-in-one place help desk, which is Gorgias today.
And it was a pretty large step from just this email template builder into a giant help desk. And at that moment, when you decided to make this major investment into the big tool, were you thinking, we're going to be a high growth startup? Were you thinking we're going to have to raise venture capital? What were you, or were you just thinking, let's build this and see what happens?
So I think it was like you said, like it was a big transition from hey, like building a plugin to building a full-blown product. And so we had a lot of hesitation at the time. Unfortunately, we got into an accelerator program called Techstars that gave us 100K plus some guidance. And so I think that was really helpful, and that helped us go through the kind of the chasm of saying, okay, let's build a full-blown app that will be like much more complex and tough to build. At the time specifically, we had a mentor who was one of the founders of Digital Ocean, which is like one of the biggest cloud providers. So these guys was like, hey, like if you want to build a business that has an impact on people's life, you need to do more than a plugin. You need to build a full-blown product. And so he kind of like shared this idea with us, and we thought about it for quite some time, and then decided to make the switch and
pull the trigger. So you aligned yourself with the right partners. You had to have applied to this accelerator, so you were kind of
Yep.
You're putting yourself out there. A lot of this is about putting yourself out there. You put yourself out there to the customers, literally, taking a bike to where they are to see what they're doing. That helped you really understand not just what they were doing with your product, but outside of your product. Gave you the idea for the help desk. Then you go, okay, well, should we do this or not? And you're like, well, we just got some funding. We're now in this accelerator. It's going to have to be bigger than a Chrome extension. It has to be more. And you've got the right advisor giving you solid advice. So I think for those listening, it's I mean, that's a lot of hustle that some people aren't willing to put into building their product. And then it's also aligning yourself with the right people. And then selectively listening, I think, is always a challenge, right? That's something that you can't really teach anybody. But listening to them in the right way. I'm sure in the beginning, they might have been thinking help desk, and you said, no, help desk for e-commerce. Or how did that conversation go when you niched it down to Shopify?
Yeah, so same as before, it was a very iterative process, like through meeting a lot of people. Like we had no idea where we would land initially. And so what has been, so at first, like at the time we moved to SF, and I was like pitching like 10 people a day. I remember, and we wanted to go in B2C specifically. We didn't know, we hadn't chosen e-commerce at the time. Like, okay, let's go towards B2C as a whole. So I was pitching a lot of different types of businesses, and like call after call after call after call. Like I realized that there was this audience that was growing pretty fast. There was the e-commerce segment specifically on Shopify, and at the time there was the Shopify conference as well in San Francisco, which was the first developer conference that they did. And so I just like stopped there and see like what was out there, and there was like a few thousand people very excited about the space, like many people like us, like scrappy entrepreneurs who wanted to start a company, and that were just at the beginning of the journey. And so we were like, okay, like it looks like it's a trend that's starting, and it's a very good ecosystem to be in. It's growing, has a lot of impact on people's life. So we decided to go into this ecosystem. And what's really interesting is that, I mean, Derek, yeah, you saw that like a couple of years ago. We saw that a few years ago as well. And it looks like with COVID, everybody has realized that, yes, like e-commerce is a thing, it's huge, and Shopify specifically, and now like all eyes are focused towards this ecosystem. But this of course like started a few years ago.
So you had to see it happening a few years ago. In a way, you could say that you had to get lucky in the sense that this trend had to continue. And I'm sure the trend is driving your growth. But let's go into this growth a little bit and talk about launching the e-commerce help desk and Shopify app. And you've been able to maintain a really high growth rate. I don't know if you want to share it or exactly what it is, but you've been growing month over month. You raised venture capital. I'm sure, yeah, some of the growth is from the trend, but I believe personally, but knowing the tool really well, that a lot of your growth is from the disruptive nature of the product. And you could maybe tell us a little bit more about why it's disruptive in this way. And a lot of people might use that term as a buzz term, but it literally, you were the first person to really do one or two things really new here.
Yeah, 100%. So like basically what's happening in e-commerce is that you have and specifically in Shopify is that you have two segments. So you have there's a million stores, and so you have the long tail of Shopify, which typically would use like Gmail for the customer service. And then you have the big stores on Shopify, like all the Fashion Novas of the world that would be on Shopify Plus. And these guys would use like some technology like Zendesk, which is like a help desk for everybody. And so, yeah, the reason that we started getting customers was when we brought Shopify within the help desk, so that you can see like all the order, you can see the journey of the shopper, you can like edit orders on the fly when you respond to customers. That was kind of the aha moment when we were pitching all these customers, is to say, hey, like you have your Shopify information, you have some other software, in our case, customer service. And so you could like bring everything together to provide a much superior experience. And so I think that was, that's how we got product market fit. And that's also an interesting part, which is a lot of companies think that they need to build a tool for everybody and like focus on like a very large set of industry. And what's interesting here is that Shopify starts to be an ecosystem in itself. And so it turns out like if you just say, hey, I'm going to build something for merchants, that's going to be superior for merchants only, then you can build a company.
Yeah, I completely agree. So it's been a few years now in the growth, and I have a feeling that the way you were getting merchants in the beginning is significantly different to the way that you are getting merchants now. Walk me through what's changed, how you've added layers to growth, and how you continue to grow so quickly.
Yeah. So it's been there's been several steps. So I'll stay like stage one was like us biking in San Francisco to visit merchants and like get to know them personally. And these merchants was crazy enough to trust us as a young startup. So that was like the early days. So we got like Sunsky was our first I think Shopify customer, and so I essentially just email them and say, hey, like we're building some technology just for you. Like, would you be interested?
Cold outbound from day one.
Yeah, but that was the initial thing because yeah, you need to build your network and you don't know anybody. So that's kind of how we got in touch with Sunsky, and then in-person meetings, like building the relationship, and then they taught us a lot about how to build the product. So that was like kind of like yes, step one was building these relationships and building trust so that people can dare to use your product, which is in its early days. After that, we had this long debate on, hey, like, should we go on the Shopify store because there was like the 20% fee, or like, hey, like, should we build our own stuff, our own distribution, or should we go on the App Store? We decided to go on the App Store. That has been pretty good. So like the two channels were, App Store and organic, a little bit of outbound still, and like local communities to get in touch with merchants. And so that's kind of what took us from I would say like 100 to 1,000 merchants, and now it's a set of channels. So it's a lot of different things. And to your point in the introduction, which is like which was under stressing the value of the partner ecosystem, this has been like last month it was the #1 channel for us, the partner ecosystem. And so that's events like this one. So we've done like plenty of events. Like I think we do like almost one event a day in every location. It's just crazy. So like that's events with agencies, tech partners, like larger online events. And that has been really good. Another one is working with agencies and get referrals from them. Another one is working from our partners. So these are some of the channels that we've recently launched that work really well.
That's incredible. So, partnerships, and then it's a lot of the events and joint webinars from the partnerships that drive that. I mean, one event a day is that you can't even tell your customers or email your list about one event a day. That's too like I'm sure there's wow. I mean, first there's so many learnings that I'm sure your team is taking from just being on a stage so often, but also like how do you balance that, or maybe put a different way? What do you suppose makes the events so successful? That's
so it's been interesting because we started this playbook before the pandemic, and the pandemic has kind of accelerated it because in the way you want to work with agencies, you want to provide value to their merchants, of course, and you also want to provide value to the agency themselves. And so our approach was to say either you can go with the kind of the traditional event playbook, which is to do webinars with hundreds of people, and then like do one massive webinar every month or every other month. And we decided to go to take another route, which was to say, hey, let's do some hyper local, hyper specific events that are just for a set of audience. Get some food delivered to them to replicate kind of the real life event experience that you would have like a happy hour. Like we would have like Uber Eats and say, hey, we're gonna do a workshop about conversational commerce. It's gonna be 10 people. 2 are gonna present, and then everybody gets to engage together. And this brings a lot of value for the merchants, for the agency, and for us. So we found that this format for events that is like hyper local, focused on a given vertical, focused on a given agency works really well. And so if you do them, like let's say you do one in LA, one in New York, one in Sydney in a day, of course, like that can scale pretty easily.
And now it's a virtual event, but are you and you're delivering the food to people virtually?
Yeah. Playing the virtual playbook as much as possible.
I love it, and I think that's very interesting. I can think about the scale and style of events as they go up. The larger the event, the less people seem to interact with each other, which is at least in a virtual setting. Even in a real life setting, people, have a harder time to meet other people. It's a little bit trickier to network. But the smaller, more intimate events, especially when you can talk to speakers in a one-to-one capacity, I think there's a lot of value there. And I can talk for days on events. It's part of my session later, so we don't need to go into it too much more. But I didn't even know that was going on, and I think that's brilliant. And so just anybody here that is looking for a great partner, I think Gorgias is definitely somebody you want to get in touch with. And I'm sure we can drop Phil's email address in chat for anybody.
Good now. So the person who's leading the events on our side is Phil. I just dropped the email address, and so we'd love to do events with you guys and run the playbook together.
Awesome. Moving back to your story a little bit more, though, I want to know. You've raised capital. How do you and you balance this with growing the company and all the duties of a CEO? How did you get to the stage where you could raise venture capital, and maybe even what are some of the pitfalls in raising capital that we should be thinking about avoiding for some of the earlier stage tech companies about to do the same?
Yeah, just before we jump into this, I just want to stress one thing, is that it is the best time ever for everybody building Shopify apps or e-commerce apps in general to raise capital, because VCs have seen like the Shopify stock going through the roof, and they just want to invest in this. So it's definitely a good time. So go ahead and talk to investors to see if it's a good opportunity for you. Pitfalls. So it's been very different at every stage. We've raised 3 times. The first one was a seed round. We raised $1.5 million at, I think at the time, a $6 million pre-valuation. And that's when we started building the help desk. So we had pretty much nothing at the time, like just a few customers here and there, but not much. Just a lot of ambition and energy to sell. And
a good pitch deck. Like what do you think closed the round raise? Like just some form of early traction numbers, or I'm sure it's more than a smile for that much.
Yeah, especially mine. I think what got us to raise was 2 things. One is we had the Chrome extension and we had some traction there, so that showed the investors that we were serious and that we knew how to execute. And 2 was getting the right connections and following the playbook the right way. So if you want to raise a seed round, basically it's all about FOMO, like fear of missing out. So what you want to do is not come to a VC and say, hey, I don't have any money right now, but I want a $1 million check, and trust me, it's going to be great. It's not going to fly. But another way to approach it is to have you start your company, you have a bunch of mentors or people that you send your monthly newsletter to, and that kind of follow the adventure. And it's a much smaller ask to go to them and say, hey, can you give me 25K? And so that's what we started doing, getting those 25K checks. Took us maybe a month to get the first one. Once we had the first one, took us a few weeks to get 10 of them. And so now you go to an investor and you say, hey, I'm raising a round. And by the way, I have 250K committed. I'm just raising 750. So I have a third of the round committed. So if you want to invest, it's really now, it's happening, it's getting real. And in the back of your mind, you know that you want to raise more, but you want to present something to the investor that looks like, hey, it's happening, it's getting real. So that's what we did. We raised 250, and then we had an introduction from one of the angels to a fund, which is a CRV out of Boston. And I remember we kind of flew there for the partner meeting in the morning. We were 4 a.m. because there was a day trip. And we started getting emails from other investors that were saying, hey, I'm putting 150K, I'm putting 25K, 50K. And so it just got real versus for the previous 2 months, we had zero, nobody wanted to invest. And so when you get to this kind of magic moment where people start getting interested, then you kind of won already, because the excitement is there, and now more people are going to come to the parties and start investing. So that's how we raised our seed round.
All right, being honest, this does sound a little bit like an episode in Silicon Valley, right? Where it's either you're hot or you're not, and it's
100%.
The door, and then the next day they're all cutting up the offers and all that. So it's ideally what you're saying though is that you it's a positioning component, and if you can't position to investors then in the right way, then certainly you're going to have a hard time positioning to the rest of the market.
100%. You need to be hot, and there is a process to follow to be hot, and this process is to gain like traction by small steps. And so small steps is like small checks, and larger checks, then like a lead investor, and that's how you become hot. Except now where like the whole e-commerce industry is hot, so you might be hot without doing anything.
So it also helps to be on a hot trend, and perhaps, and I'd imagine from seed to Series A, now being hot is about your growth numbers, right? It's about your month over month growth as opposed to that early traction component.
Yeah, 100%. So in that regard, like we've kind of built the foundation, and you've been really helpful there as well, was to like build of course the product and then the growth engine. And so the product, we just spoke about it. The growth engine was these channels that we were talking about. And so basically, like over time, like you have your kind of growth machine, which is a set of a list of channels, and you just like every day you make it 1% better, you add something, and so over time it gets more and more powerful. And so through that, we've been able to do like kind of the triple numbers, and so that has been like what has been help. So yeah, since we had this good growth, like it's been not too hard to raise the Series A 6 months ago, and now like I know lots of folks in e-commerce that are also raising rounds. We just saw Yotpo a few days ago because of the fact that e-commerce is booming.
Yeah, and I know we've got Mike from SMS Bump, now acquired by Yotpo, in the audience, and he'll be on in just a second with John. But before we get to that, let's talk about you mentioned the product. The way that you iterate on the product, I thought was something that I really enjoyed seeing, because it was very strategic. You categorize customer feedback, and then you also have like a way of innovating aside from what the customer is asking for. Tell me how you choose the next feature to build.
Yeah. So we try to have this idea of meritocracy everywhere in the company. So in the way we make decisions to grow, in the we make decisions to add stuff to the product. And so the way we follow this idea of meritocracy is twofold for the product. Number one is that we get like 50, 60 pieces of feedback every day from customers. So that's support tickets, NPS responses, sales calls, customer success calls, all of that stuff. And so that gets to an inbox, which is managed in a tool called Product Board. And so we have like all of these pieces of feedback that we categorize. So for example, hey, I want a WhatsApp integration. Hey, I want Instagram DMs. And so we would just like match them. And so at the end of the month, thanks for sharing it on the chat. It's good to be specific for our audience. And so at the end of the month, we go through all of this feedback. We sort them by revenue per customer, because obviously, like if you have one small customer versus a large customer, you want 10 small customers for one large. And so we just know like, hey, like here is what people want. And so based on that, we take that list, and we take the features that have the most impact for our customers. So for example, if there is if you're improving the macros, which are like pre-written text that you can send to customers, if you're improving that saves like 10 seconds per ticket, that's huge, because you answer like 80 tickets a day. So that's going to save you a lot of time at the end of the year. So that's the way we prioritize that. And that's kind of like the user driven. And then we have bets that we make. And so these bets are same, like we want to follow this idea of meritocracy that has been popularized, by the way, by a guy called Ray Dalio, which has like a really nice book called Principles that I encourage you to read. And so we have these bets, and so we just list them, and then we score them in terms of time it can save for merchants, and then pick the ones that have the most impact.
I love it. I know that you've taken some bets in machine learning, artificial intelligence in the past. Have you taken any bets that have failed yet? Because I feel like you're on a winning streak.
A winning streak hides like a lot of failed bets. Let's see.
Maybe all the way back even to the Chrome extension days.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. One of the bets that is not working so well right now is Magento. So I would say like a year ago, I was talking to investors to prepare for the Series A at the time, and everybody was like, hey, Shopify is too small, you should diversify to other platforms. And so we picked Magento as the first platform we would diversify to. I think we launched about 6 months ago. And the bet was to say, hey, we want to have 1 million of AR towards the end of the year. I think we have a good shot at hitting it, but it's not so easy, as easy as we thought. And one of the reasons here is that we underestimated the fact that the ecosystem is completely different. Everything's slower, so you need to fly, meet the agencies in person, build a relationship, and get leads from them. I know Klaviyo and Yotpo have been successful there, but I think it takes more time than Shopify. So yeah, that's an example of a bet that I
Hasn't
don't know
paid
if
off
it has
yet.
failed, but it's slower.
I feel you on that. That's a really fascinating learning. So yeah, I mean, I'm learning a lot, and I hope that everyone listening is catching these little nuggets that you're saying. You're saying if you're going to break into Magento, it is a fundamentally different platform than Shopify, and I completely agree. I think the ecosystem isn't as tight knit, and you said that it goes through agencies and it goes through relationships, which means it's a bit more of an enterprise sales process. So if maybe your sales process is 2 to 3 months on Shopify, maybe even less, then your sales process might be 3 months, 3 months to 6 months to perhaps even a year over on the Magento side. And then instead of having a sales, an account executive, you might want a business development rep to form those relationships or something, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Have you separated the team out into you guys do Magento, you guys do Shopify, or do you have somebody just working on those accounts?
No, we haven't. And I think that wasn't the best way to approach it.
Okay.
So right now it's cross-functional. So in sales, we'd have somebody who works Magento, in biz dev as well, in marketing as well. But the problem we have is that each team has their own goal, typically in terms of revenue. I mean, for sales and biz dev and marketing. And so the challenge we've had there is that it's much easier to close more on Shopify. So there is no strong incentive to close more on Magento. So we had these sub goals that was to say, hey, I want you to bring $1 million of revenue and 50K from Magento, say. But obviously, like they find ways to hit the $1 million goal, but not. They're like, okay, Magento was too hard. That wasn't the low hanging fruit.
I see. So you're not done squeezing the juice from the existing channel. Then it's kind of it's almost like a good problem to have.
Yeah. I think like nobody's done squeezing the juice from Shopify and getting more market share there, and merchants are growing like crazy, and there are like many ways we can help them. So and actually, like there was the earnings from Shopify I think last week or earlier this week, I forgot. And what was really interesting there is to notice that the size of merchants went up 75% on average. So that's just crazy if you think about it. Like your customer base last year is now 75% bigger, and you haven't done anything. So yeah, there's clearly something happening there. And obviously, like Shopify has this huge traction versus the kind of old world on-premise on Magento or Salesforce is like changing as fast.
Awesome. That's amazing. And how many people are in the company, by the way, and how many departments? What, like, maybe lay out really quick the company structure.
Yeah, for sure. So on the product side, we have engineering, which is the largest team. Obviously, that's about like 30 people. I mean, soon to be 30 people. Then we have product. That's a team we recently built with 2 people for soon as well. That basically works on this idea prioritization and writing the specs.
Wow.
And I think we started the product team about 6 months ago. We should have started earlier, like when we were like 25, 30 people. So that's a learning we've had. So this is on the product side. On the acquisition side, so we have 2 teams that generate demand. One is business development, which is Phil. And so their role is to generate demand through relationships. So that's with partners for the most part. And then we have growth marketing, whose job is to generate demands through automation. So that's ads, that's campaigns that we launch on the internet, like that kind of stuff. Then we have sales, then we have success that onboards and retains customers and make sure they're happy. And then we have support. And one last piece that's pretty important. You were in the notes we were talking about, like building this growth machine, is that we have what we call growth ops, which is a team that basically builds the data infrastructure for the whole company to access, that has the unified customer information. So for example, like if you look up Sensky, which is this first customer, you can see when marketing talked to them, sales talked to them, etc.
And so, let's go a little bit deeper into growth ops. Like, what is some of the obscure data sources and things that they're pulling in, and where does it all sit? Where is who's looking at it, and when are they looking at it, and what are they using that information for?
Yes. So the sources of information are, yeah, there are plenty. So the first one is the product. So we know, like, when people like send a message, add a user, etc. Then we have the website, so who's like interested in the product, and then we have a bunch of other things, which is everything else we have in the business. So for example, there is a sales call or a success call. We would record it with a Gong, and then the recording goes to the customer profile, so we can see, hey, Sunsky spoke with Azif, for example, and then you can see what the call was about. If there is a support ticket, obviously, like, Gorgias fits into this, and so you can see the support ticket. So the goal is to have this centralized profile where you can see, hey, like, Sunsky is a merchant, and here is everything that they've done regarding Gorgias. Like, they've clicked on this button, they have attended this webinar, they've had a call with this person, and then that feeds into all of the other tools, which is HubSpot or CRM, and we have a tool called Hull, which basically gives you this unified view. And so the big value here is that you typically have silos between teams. So you'd have your marketing stack, your success stack, your support stack, etc. And so the value here is that all the information is shared in one place to all tools. And so this way you can have the central view, the holistic view of the customer everywhere, which is kind of what we do with our own product for our customers, but we also do it internally for ourselves.
Yeah, it's a little different when you're a merchant versus a tech company, because you have a lot more things to take care of there. I'd love to dive into that further with you, maybe another time, but I think just giving people the taste of that idea is so powerful. Really pulling in data from your product, from your sales, from your success, from your support teams, from every conversation that you ever have with your customer into that one source. It does end up being quite powerful. I've seen it at work inside Gorgias, and I promise for everybody listening that that is like goal number one in your company. It's not even like once you have that, then you can do things like use product board to find new products and features, because you're understanding the customer by revenue source and you're connecting all your data together. And otherwise it just would become a big messy pile of spreadsheets, or that would just ruin everybody's day. We have to go into the next session. Roman, what are you hiring for? What kind of partners are you looking for? What can we do as a community for you?
Oh, I appreciate it. We're hiring for head of brand right now. That's something we're good on the data side, so we want to get better at the brand side. So that's one. And then we have plenty of other roles on the website. We have a hiring tab there. And so, yeah, if you're looking for a gig, we might be a good fit. And in terms of partners, we're actually in the process of building our own app store. So yeah, like, if you think you can bring value to merchants that use Gorgias, or if you think your merchants can benefit from Gorgias, so we'd love to talk and see how we can do that. Thanks for the link.
Yeah, of course, Roman. Thank you so much. It's amazing to see the success you're having. I think hopefully before the next time we'll talk about something else, but one of the next times we talk, it's going to be about either you're going public or you're getting acquired by somebody. You're just on an amazing trajectory, and I hope everyone here is watching you grow, learning from you, and we can follow in your footsteps in that way.
Sure, of course. And I'm just going to leave my email in the chat as well. If anyone has questions, happy to share anything we've learned on the way.
Perfect. Awesome, Roman.
All right. Thank you so much, Derek, for having me. It was awesome as usual. And have fun with the rest of the sessions.
Yeah. Talk to you later.